Welcome to the Good Success Podcast, where we encourage and challenge purpose-driven entrepreneurs to create, build, and maintain profitable businesses so they can have more to give more. Our motto is to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Tom Olson, and I can't even say my name today. I am your host, Tom Olson, and I have got an amazing guest on today. I just got to talk to him a little bit before the podcast. I got to know him a little bit, and I think you guys are really going to be excited for what he's got to say. If you guys haven't gotten your PPP loans, which I know a lot of you out there haven't, a lot of people I've heard have complained that they've submitted them and they never got approved or whatever. If you haven't, you definitely want to pay attention to this podcast. Or if you're a business owner and you may ever need funding for anything, I would suggest paying attention to this podcast. Right, Mark?
Exactly.
And honestly, if you're a business owner, you need it. You know, at some point you need cash. And every time I go to a mastermind, every time that I go to any event and the experienced investor is up there talking, they always talk about credit unions. And, you know, Mark is like your connection to those credit unions around the country. And, he's CEO of Member Business Financial Services. And welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Can't wait. Again, Mark Ritter is the CEO of Member Business Financial Services, and he really is just an expert at helping you get business funding for your business. And he said 75% of his customers are real estate based. So a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, that's what you guys do. You're in real estate, and he's really focused on getting long-term lending or business funding for your business. So long-term lending on real estate or, like I said, business funding. So I'm really excited to have Mark on the show today. But before we get started, something that we just went through in our last mastermind, and I just want to get the word out. If you guys want this information, or if you guys want a copy of this, we don't have it yet as an ebook, but we will have it shortly. But we've created this Family Foundations Blueprint, which is basically a way for you to be able to pass on as a leader of your family, as maybe there's things that you've learned in your business, and there's things that you might say to yourself, man, I want to make sure that my kids know this. Well, guess what? Your kids are never going to know it unless you write it down. And that's really what this is. If you go through it, there's 30 something pages of actual questions and answers for you to actually write down. And just a lot like my 30 Days to Good Success workbook. So I'm actually going to be creating a family office blueprint for you to be able, and this is just the first chapter of it, but we've got this 30 Day to Good Success journey. It's the same type of concept. It kind of explains the question, and it kind of really helps you figure out where you're at in life on the 30 Day to Good Success. But this is going to help you figure out how to leave a legacy. I believe that you are supposed to leave a legacy and leave things to not just your children, but your children's children. So that should last a while. And we shouldn't just be thinking about, what can I have at the end of this world? How do I have a house on a hill with a pocket full of $100 bills? It should be, how can I lay up treasures for somebody else? And how can I leave this world a better place? And one of the most important ways that you can leave this world a better place is to leave a legacy to your children's children. And this is not just about money. Some of this is money, and we talk about that. But if you look at the successful families in the world, and let me just real quick talk about the Rockefeller family. The Rockefeller have what's called the Rockefeller habits. That was written by the original guy that said, hey, like, I made the money. I want this to go on and on forever. And what you'll learn is, if you check out the richest of the rich families, most of the time their wealth is gone by generation 3. And the reason why that money's all gone is because they never wrote their story. They never sat down and said, these are my core values. This is what I learned. This is how I made my money. This is how you should handle money. This is how you should treat your fellow human being. And at the end of the day, you want to leave this world a better place. And if you read the Rockefeller habits, one of the things every single successful family always has in it is that component of giving, that component of of giving to somebody else, and not just living this world for ourselves, which is really what good success is all about. It's in everything we do. You know, I want to help people, promote it. I want to encourage, and I want to challenge you to not just live for yourself, but to live for others, to work, to have, to give, to be a conduit of all those time, talents, and treasures that God's given you, so that you can make this world a better place and you can invest in the lives of others. So if you guys want this, just email me, tolson@goodsuccess.com. I'll send you a copy of what and actually we even have a program for, if you'll actually fill this out and do a video of yourself explaining this, we'll actually write a book for you as well. We got a pretty cool program for you to be able to just have on your coffee table as kind of like a legacy piece to give to your kids. It can be done very easy and very simply if you're willing to do that. So if you guys are interested in that, you guys can also email us at sales@goodsuccess.com and let us know about that. One more thing before we get started with Mark. I do want to let you guys know about the Good Success Mastermind. We have the Business Builders Boot Camp, where we're going to talk about how do you know what stage you're at in your business, how to build culture in your business, how to hire the right people, and how to make sure that you're doing it the right way. And the next mastermind is August 6th, 7th, 8th. We're going to have a lot of fun here in Gary, Indiana. I hope you guys can make it. You guys can find out more information about that at goodsuccess.com. So, Mark, what is going on? I'm excited to have you. Hopefully, you're ready to bring some energy, and I know that you're going to add a bunch of value because you're going to connect them. You're going to connect people to money. And really, like, that's kind of one of the problems. I shouldn't say problems. It's normally one of the things that beginners have to learn, how to raise private money or how to raise money. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and kind of, what got you started in this business that you have?
Sure. As you said, I'm Mark Ritter. I'm the CEO of Member Business Financial Services. I usually, sometimes in the office, we just say MBFS to make life a little bit easier.
It is a mouthful.
And we're a company that's owned by 13 credit unions. And we work with over 70 credit unions. And we really have one goal. We help out and support the credit unions so that they can make real estate loans, commercial real estate loans, small business loans to the members in their community. Credit unions are cooperative, and my company is kind of a cooperative in nature. Instead of every credit union going out, because they tend to be smaller institutions relatively, instead of everybody going out and building a big back office and hiring lenders and systems and people, they formed us to work with those lenders. And we also have originators and loan officers out there working with people and matching them up with the best credit union option they can. So I got started in this business, almost 20 years ago. And I was really looking for a community institution, kind of a community bank. And at the time, Congress just enacted a law that allowed credit unions to get into this type of business. It used to be they couldn't hardly do it on any substantive basis. And when I'm in suburban Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, at the time I got into credit union business lending, there was $13 million in business loans among every credit union in Pennsylvania, and most of that was Amish loans. And now there's billions, and there's almost 80 billion in commercial lending among credit unions nationwide. So our hardest story is people love their credit union. Nobody's protesting in the streets against their credit unions. A third of America belongs to credit unions, but they just don't think about that and consider it as an option where they can get this nice, friendly, approachable culture to help out their business. So that's where we try to get the word out and really try to make an opportunity for real estate investors where you can get that personalized service and sit down with somebody that maybe you can't at some of the bigger banks.
So you mentioned that, and you said you're located in Philadelphia, right?
Yes, and we work with credit unions all over.
Okay, so that was kind of my next question. So basically, anybody in all 50 states?
Yeah, and there's actually probably about maybe 12 to 15 of people like me. So we and as I mentioned, we're very cooperative among each other. So if you have a deal in Idaho, I don't have credit unions there in particular, but I'm friendly with credit unions all over the country to match you up with somebody who would be a good fit. So we cover a large portion of the country, but even for those that we might not have somebody local in your right in your marketplace, we can help you get matched up through other folks like myself.
Awesome. So what about Indiana?
Yeah, we do have a couple credit unions we work with in Indiana. We do have people, we do have some folks in there where we could help some people. So
I'm putting you on the hot seat there because I'm in Indiana. I'm in Indiana here, and I'm like, man, if you're going to be on my podcast, you at least got to be able to loan to people in my area. So what, out of all the business that you do, what is the majority of that business? Is it really like small or like long-term, rental portfolios? And I'm assuming this is commercial lending, right? We're not talking about like Fannie Mae backed lending. It's kind of a little bit more in that commercial space, right?
Exactly. We do. We have credit unions that help out the smallest of real estate investors. Maybe you have a job and you're wanting to buy that first property, and you've been a good member of the credit union, or you have a nice story. We help you out there. And usually maybe about a third of our business is just straight investment real estate. We also do a lot of what I call small business, small balance commercial real estate, mixed use. Maybe you own that property where there's an apartment on it, but there's a retail space or a small office or a farm. I call credit unions Main Street lenders. You drive up and around your downtowns and towns in America, and you look around, and that's what they like to lend. We do bigger commercial real estate deals. We do several transactions a year and quite a bit chunk into the 7-figure range. So there are credit unions that deal with that marketplace. So, and then we do a portion of the small business loans. We do traditional SBA loans. In the last 3-4 months, we've been pretty well consumed by the PPP loans, and helping people, making sure that they have access to the financing, where they had some problems with some of the larger banks. We've processed almost 5,000 PPP loans in our credit union network.
That's amazing. That's a huge number for somebody like you, I believe. So let's just park there for a little while, just because it's definitely something that's on a lot of people's minds. And I've had actually 3 or 4 different podcasts specifically on the PPP loans, but we haven't talked about it for a while. So, Congress did just enact an extension of when you can apply and actually get the PPP funding. Can you give us a little bit of information about that?
Sure. For one day, the PPP loan was basically shut down and everybody was starting to get on with their life. And Congress extended it for roughly 6 weeks so that banks and credit unions can get authorizations up until August 8th. And as long as they put that information in the E-Trans system, they're good. And there's one of the best parts recently is also the Flexibility Act that was recently passed. Mm-hmm. And you really have to try not to get your loan fully forgiven. Because instead of jamming it into 8 weeks of expenses and only so much can be, only 25% can either be rent or utilities. It's now can be 40% on rent and utilities and up to 60% on salaries. And you can up really on a 24-week period, you have to spend that money now. And we also think, we can't say it for a fact, but from what we understand, there's going to be continued flexibility in terms of the forgiveness process.
I got it. So what's been your experience? It seemed like for a lot of us, like we were trying to ram them in that very first, run, and then the money ran out so fast, everybody was freaking out, and then Congress came and passed, more money to go to this program. But now I'm assuming that there's money left over.
Now we get a trickle of applications. There's $130 billion left. And actually since May, it's actually been an increasing amount of money available because loans have been returned. So it's been more loans given back than available. So is tons of money out there available. The volumes has shut down. So really you can get your money in a short order and get that flipped around without much of a problem, where you can maybe even have a conversation. The first 2 weeks of that were the most chaotic events of my life. And I always joked with my wife that someday they'll make a movie about the whole program, because whatever you experienced, it was 100-fold to me on the back end. So
and I can tell you, we experienced that ourselves, because I've got 5, 6 different companies, and we thought to ourselves, 4 of these is, I think were, realistically affected, pretty harshly during this, at least for a couple months. And we were, trying to determine, are we going to keep people on payroll, or are we going to, lay them off for a certain period of time? And so that was definitely stressful time. And I can remember talking to my banker even, and, they were like, we're up till 2:00 in the morning trying to process these loans, and definitely interesting. So, because it's been a while since we've had people talk about that, and I do think it's still an important topic. If somebody hasn't already applied for their PPP loan, can you just kind of give the general gist of who should apply and how would they do that, or how would they do that with you even?
Sure. If they contact us, we have a link set up where people can apply online. And the PPP program, many people have been intimidated to apply because they were nervous that they didn't deserve the money, or they didn't need the money, or there was a lot of fear about the program after all the Shake Shack and LA Lakers stories came out. But really, the Congress really looks at it and says, if you need less than $2 million and you're not a public company, it's not like you can go to the capital markets and get money. So if you're a business and you had payroll last year, you can be eligible for the program. That it's really determined by your payroll numbers from last year, much more than the profitability.
So basically, anybody with payroll last year, payroll this year, and you can prove it that you have payroll, and you're going to continue to employ people. That's part of like what they were trying to accomplish by this, is to keep people employed and not get everybody on unemployment. So as long as you're willing to keep people on payroll, that's really who they were trying to help, right?
Exactly. And where there was the most confusion and where I felt worst for people was the self-employed people or independent contractors, because they're not used to getting unemployment. So if you have no employees and you're self-employed, it's based, the amount of money that you can get is based off of your profitability from last year.
I got you.
Or your receipts. And that was the most they really made the self-employed and independent contractors wait a few weeks. It caused a lot of angst and a lot of confusion, and a lot of people who thought they were getting turned down, they weren't getting turned down. They were eligible, but they just weren't eligible yet. But now they are. And there's actually, if you're on the fence, I would apply, because there's laws proposed in Congress where they're going to have a second round, but some of the proposed eligibility is that it's for smaller business. They're going to cut out the large corporations, but some of the eligibility is based on whether you got the loan the first time around. So it is well worth the effort, and it's a much different process from what was in the news media at the beginning of April.
Excellent. I really do appreciate us spending some time on that. And later on, I will let the audience know what your information is, because I think the other thing is too, is I think from a consumer dealing with a big bank during it, like I probably would have much rather had somebody else holding my hand that could actually talk to, that I could actually probably, reach out to and say what's going on. And it seems like that's kind of the service that you kind of try to help people with.
Anybody who's ever gotten their car loan from the credit union, or they've had that relationship, they tend to know that it's when it comes to customer service, that's really paramount to the organization. And we carry that same message over to small businesses and real estate investors, where we look at ourselves as it's a co-op for the benefit of the members that are there, except instead of just your car loan or debit card or credit card, we're doing it for your business.
Awesome. So again, if you guys have not already applied for your PPP loans, and if you are running your business the way that we at Good Success try to tell you to run your business, and making sure you have proper bookkeeping, making sure you're paying people. And I think, in real estate, sometimes people get in trouble because they pay people with 1099s instead of paying people on payroll, and they think they're saving money. But in a situation like this, it actually was beneficial for some people that had larger payrolls and had real legitimate books to be able to show that, hey, look, I'm paying these people. They are real employees. Like for us here, we have 28 employees in several different companies. And, it was a blessing to us, and it actually helped us in several of our businesses, to be able to kind of get through a period of time in which, like, we didn't really know what was going on. And for us, in one of our businesses, for instance, we're used to having like 8 to 10 closings a month. We were having like 2 to 4 closings during those months. And it really wasn't even because we weren't finding buyers. Our houses were selling like hotcakes, but we couldn't get them closed because, banks decided to change the way that they're lending on stuff. And it was kind of a real hassle for us. So if you guys have not already applied for those, I pay attention to the end of this where Mark gives out his information, and I would highly recommend you guys reach out to him and see if he might be able to help you guys get your PPP loans if you have it. Now, we did talk a little bit at the beginning about the other loans, the EDI loans, and you kind of said, you kind of hit the lottery if you hit those. Are you kind of recommending those to people, or are you kind of just saying that it's maybe not really worth the hassle to go down unless you can really, have a story or something behind you?
Yeah, the SBA EIDL loans are a great program. That's one, it's a fixed amount of money, and there's a lot more applicants than money that's out there. And, for the PPP program, you are dealing with the business and the credit unions and the banks who really have an incentive. They want to keep things moving. The EIDL loans are getting processed by a federal agency in the back office. So it tends to be a little bit more bureaucratic. If you're going that route, give it a shot if you have the time, but just set the expectations accordingly that you might not get the loan.
So basically what you're saying is, like, there was more applicants than money for that loan. And then the PPP loan, there's been less applicants than money.
Exactly.
I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So let's kind of move on. You kind of gave us a little bit. How did you actually get into doing what you're doing? You just kind of wake up one day and say, I want to help, credit unions, or like, what's your story? How did that all come about 20 years ago?
I really believe in community banking and community lending. And unfortunately, there's a lot less community banks than there used to be. People tend to get merged up, and every time your bank gets merged up, you move down the food chain just a little bit more. And that's, I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, up in the coal region, blue collar background. And, when my father always needed money, he would always say the credit union is where I needed the money and they helped me out. And it was kind of this confluence of events where that's where I got into how I kind of started looking into credit unions. And at the time, I was in my 20s, and there was these large credit unions that wanted to start these programs. And I think they just said, here you go. We need somebody. You seem like a nice guy. And we really just started booming from there. And it was really, I really believe that everybody should have a fair shake to access the money and capital to grow their business. So for me personally, it was a good fit for my values and what I wanted to do. No aspirations to, go up to big banks, big institutions, go on Wall Street. I really like dealing with Main Street America. And, I was at a credit union in central Pennsylvania where we really grew it to, be one of the top 10 in the country, in terms of credit unions and business lending. And after 10 years, it was going great. But I kind of I'm very entrepreneurial. I like looking for that next opportunity. And there were these companies that we call them CUSOs, credit union service organizations. And that's what we really, there was one about a couple hours east of me, and they were looking for the CEO and decided it was a great opportunity. And, since I started up, we kind of worked with about 12 credit unions when we started. And now we work with 70, all spread out all throughout the country. So I really like helping credit unions help their members and businesses in their area. And it helps me just, instead of just working with one credit union and kind of working in a community, you can expand that reach and impact to the country's small businesses.
That's good. So you don't, most people that I have on the podcast, they have this kind of like big story about how they actually got into what they're in, or they lost their job, or like one thing led to another, but you kind of just grew into it. Your story kind of almost starts once you actually got into doing this. You almost fell into it in your 20s and just said, hey, this might be a good job for me. Maybe I can start this thing. And then it kind of just blew up, and, from there, and it looks like, you've grown, 800% over different time periods, and have grown into, is it in the top 10 of people that help people get
the credit union I was at previously, we went from 0 to one of the top 10 in the country. And I always joke that if I went to probably the reason I'm where I'm at, because if I went to a bank I would get fired the first week. I tend to be where I want to sit down and help people. I tend to be very casual, conversational. So that's much more credit unions are my personality. So it's a great cultural fit for me. So I think that's kind of how I, worked into that, because like I said, I knew if I was sitting at a big bank and wanted to shoot the breeze and try to help people out in the communities, where sometimes you land in a box, I wouldn't have lasted very long one way or the other.
That's a great point too. Like, it's kind of I think the word that you use is, it's kind of your culture. Like, you kind of just like, dealing with, you don't like necessarily dealing with Wall Street. You want to deal with Main Street. You want to deal with the people and the actual lenders. And I just think that's a great thing to point out. And I think every business kind of has its own culture. Every industry has its own culture. And you just said, hey man, like, I know I'm good at this. I'm good at being casual. I'm not going to be probably a suit and tie guy. I'm going to be the guy that's going to get it done. But I really like this fit. And I think that people should be thinking that way for their business. If you're a business owner out there and you're trying to create a certain culture, we do here at all of our companies. And I even have a city hall meeting twice a month in which we spend 2 hours training, giving shout outs, doing book reviews, and training on different things, and trying to create that positive culture here. I mean, we even had a cookout, for the 4th of July, but in your family, I think it's also the same thing. You ought to create that culture. And that's kind of why we have the Family Foundation's blueprint. I promise you it'll never happen unless you do it proactively. But I just think I appreciate you bringing that up, Mark, because it's something that, we preach here at Good Success, is that culture is paramount. Culture is like one of the most important things. And really, if you find out what you're good at, which it sounds like Mark has, and he's kind of grown in that, it's even more powerful, because you can just blow it off blow it out of the water like Mark has with his business. So I really appreciate that. So you talked, your story isn't like, super amazing to get into it, but you've done amazing things since you've been in it. Your journey kind of started there. But I'm sure through the years, you've been in this for 20 years. So I'm sure that through that, you've probably had some challenges, right?
So everything was great. I said I was at this credit union for 10 years, and I went and took this opportunity where I'm at now. And because I knew it could really boom, it could really do well. What I didn't mention is I was the 5th CEO in 5 years. And it was an absolutely abominable, in terms of the service it was providing to people. I thought I would just do the same thing at my old credit union, kind of lift it up and go. And it was actually my first day on the job. It was supposed to be the day Superstorm Sandy hit here in the Northeast. So I moved here. My family was still a couple hours away, and I was sitting in the dark for a couple days. And I walked in, and the first day on the job, an employee who's no longer there hangs up the phone and just starts cursing out one of our clients and just saying horrible things. And I just said, oh boy, what have I been into? Turning around and creating culture is so much harder than just the nuts and bolts technical side of a business. And that was by far and away my biggest challenge of, I rolled back and just focus on, the kindergarten basics of being nice and accurate and how can we do things. And the previous CEO to me told the staff, our people are idiots and our job is to protect them from themselves. And I just said, whoa, hold on. That's not the tone and culture. And that's what came across to our clients and to their clients. And it was just a very combative office bully type of mentality. And really to try to roll that back and change it and set up procedures and then build it just a little at a time. I quickly realized it was kind of that tipping point where you just, eventually people started working in and making those small incremental changes really is what turned us around into a success, in just keeping the culture, keeping, good business and good service is the same no matter what industry you're in. And that was 90% of our issues. So it was a long way to get there, and we're a long ways from where we were, but it was quite a story and work effort to get there.
Yeah, that ties in, just perfectly with kind of what we talked about before with culture, and it has to be done on purpose, because if not, like, you're just going to let the almighty dollar kind of just, control everything. So it all becomes about money. It all becomes about dog eat dog. Like, I need to eat today. So it doesn't matter who I have to step on in order to be able to do what I need to do. And, here at Good Success, like, I just can't put my head on the pillow every night and know that that's how I conducted business. And I can't even let the people that work for me conduct business that way. So, that's why our number one core value is charity, which in my opinion means love. It means to do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. It means that, you're not here for yourself. You're here to be able to help serve and help, that customer or that client. And even the experience for that customer is just paramount and so important. So I really appreciate that. So the biggest challenge that you would say would be to turn around a bad culture when you kind of, stepped into something that you didn't realize.
Yeah. That was the toughest one. And I took quite the culture shock in terms of having to take on a whole team where we had to really turn things around. And I'm glad you said about charity. That's really become a big focus of us here. We try to work with the credit unions that we partner with. And as a result of what we did for the PPP program is everybody who worked with every credit union that worked with us for the PPP program, we donated $1,000 to a food bank in their marketplace. And it was just great. It was really great to kind of make those impacts in the communities where we lend to and our businesses are.
That's awesome. I love that. I always love to talk to givers and love to talk to people that are trying to make a difference, of people that are less fortunate or people that just need help from time to time. That's awesome. So, so that must have been, I think the hardest part about culture is that you also have to have, in order to have good culture, there has to be accountability. So, and that's kind of like, that's been the hardest thing for me at times, is like, you want to be the nice guy and you want to show how to be nice, but you also have to be able to say what the truth is from time to time. And that truth is really what accountability is. It's holding somebody accountable to what their job is supposed to be, what their quotas are supposed to be, but also making sure that they're doing it in a way that is proper, and in a way that's kind, and in a way that you would want to be treated if you were on the other side of that coin. So, that's awesome. And I think that's, sometimes for me, that's been the lowest points for me at times. And it's also been like where the rubber really meets the road, and where I have to make those tough decisions that say, no, we're not going to put up with this kind of behavior. We're not going to put up with the negativity. We have to let people go. And a lot of times you have to get rid of those rotten apples, or they'll make all the rest of the people in the office rotten. So it's been really hard, but I had to make that determination. Is my why big enough? Like, is it really worth it to me to change this? And I'm assuming that you had to make that same move and that same mindset as well, to say, hey, like, why am I really doing this? Which kind of leads us to our next question that we always ask is like, why do you do what you do? Why did you go through that? Why do you continue to do what you do?
Yeah, it really gets into wanting, we want to help the smallest of the small businesses. We have that's really what we want to do. And I want I really look at it, my different stakeholders. How can I help all the different stakeholders? And part of that is my employees. What can I do to help my employees grow as a person, as an individual? What can I do to help the businesses in the communities where we want to put money into? Making money is easy. It's really easy to grow a company. It's really easy to make $1. It's much harder and more important to me to do it in the value system of your faith, to honor your family, to honor your parents, to be respected in the community where you're making an impact. All around, and being that, credit unions are nonprofits, and doing it in a not-for-profit arena is much easier to do than an organization where you have the earnings per share for the quarter hanging over your head, or you're trying to build the business to merge it out. I have all those pressures off of me. In why I'm doing what I do in this arena versus kind of the for-profit financial services area.
I love that. I knew that, but I kind of like struck me because I've heard that and I knew it, but I haven't really focused on that all credit unions are nonprofits. So like if you're trying to help support nonprofits, a credit union is a great place to do business with as well. So I appreciate that. So I got just a couple questions before we kind of get in, into the end here. But, what are the keys to getting a loan or getting, business funding, for real estate? A lot of the people that listen to this podcast are in real estate. So what are those keys to successfully getting a business loan?
I always say there's the basics of blocking and tackling where, we have to show that you can pay back the loan, period. We're not a hard money lender. So stay organized, keep neat. If we're asking for information and we give you a list, it's because we need it. It's not just a suggestion list. We have a nice checklist. And if you're not sure about it, get help. Go through another partner who's done through this before. Go through an organization that helps real estate investors. Go through your local CPA. Get that organization. And that's really kind of that piece of, we're asking for what we need. And that's because there's reasons for everything on that list. And in today's world, we want to understand the business. I just don't want to look at the numbers. We want to understand you and who you are. So we're probably going to ask about your story much more than some of the big banks or some of the different private money out there, because we want to understand you and we want to understand the relationship. We don't look at it as this transaction, but we look at it for what can we do for this and to get you where you want to go in the future. So that's really what I would say are those keys of being open. And it's much better if there's things that we have to overcome to make this loan to you. Tell us that on the front end before we end up in the 11th hour and try to find it. Like I said, we're cooperative in nature and we're here to try to make it. And if we can't, we'll tell you what you need to do so that maybe we can get you there. So, and that's where the other piece is, try to find, people look at lending like it's a commodity, but I always like to say we're more like a restaurant. There's really fine dining where you're going to pay for really high-end service. There's fast, quick, and cheap. You really have to find a culture, a financial institution that fits where you are. as a person and fits who you want, how you want to be served. If you go into one of the top 5 biggest banks in the country, don't expect to sit down with a conversation. That's just not their model. Their model is there's a box, here you go, get it in, get it out. So really find somebody who kind of fits what you're looking to do in your stage of your business.
So, understand your story. I think a lot of times, the reason why businesses don't want to give that isn't because they don't really know their story. It's because they have never taken time to actually write it down, and it's actually work to actually write down their story. But other than that, what are maybe some other mistakes that you've seen that people trying to get funding and they didn't get it? What kind of pitfalls can we help people with to not go through?
Yeah, it's really just not the biggest mistake that we see is just not having your information organized that it's available, not talking to somebody about a loan that they don't do. You could have a credit-worthy loan, but even in the credit union space, not everybody does everything to everyone all the time. If you need $15,000, there's lenders that specialize in that. If you need $20 million, there's lenders who specialize in that. So really trying to fit that lending box to the lender versus thinking that everybody does everything all the time. Credit unions love real estate investment properties. There's a lot of places that just don't do it. So just because somebody says no to you doesn't mean it's not a creditworthy transaction. It means it's not a fit for that lender. Don't take it as your transaction is not creditworthy to anybody, so you have to go to a subprime marketplace. It's just not a fit for them.
I gotcha. So what's the marketplace right now look like so let's separate these two. So we've talked about business lending and we've talked about actual, real estate. What does the actual marketplace look like right now for business loans, just like direct to the business loans?
Sure. The easy answer would be it's really tightened up, but in my space, in the credit union space, these are boom times. Because what credit unions don't borrow money to lend out. They lend off of deposits, and deposits have skyrocketed. Liquidity in financial institutions have skyrocketed, and investment rates have plummeted. So what do they need to do? They have to put that money out in loans to make anything.
Right.
So, and obviously there's more issues with businesses. So we want to understand where your business is and how it's been impacted. And what's been the history, and maybe you have a business where it's just a bump in the road. You had 2 months where you were pretty well shut down and you're back to normal. Maybe I'm sorry, but if you're a cruise travel agent, your business isn't coming back anytime soon. But maybe there were some other businesses, you service computers or a dentist, and you were down, and that business is going to come back. But you just had a down time, and now it's going to come back. We want to understand how the current pandemic is impacting you and what the prognosis is for the future. We actually deal with a lot of businesses, depending on your model, businesses booming. This has been, I always say that our current environment's been kind of a 2-sector economy where there's really been some people have soared and some people, unfortunately, it's been tough. But our volume is actually back to pre-pandemic levels in June, which we were stunned at. We didn't think lending would be coming back for businesses for quite a while. And we're really seeing a lot of businesses maybe need that capital, maybe need to expand, maybe need to do some things, or it's a great time to refinance. And we have plenty of money where that's what we're looking at. So,
especially at super low rates. If you guys haven't considered refinancing, I would.
Yeah, and one of the quirks with credit unions is actually by law, federal credit unions can't charge a prepayment penalty on any deal that we do. So sometimes with businesses, they're kind of locked in and they can't move around. Credit unions, we want you to be with us because it's a good deal, not because you have to.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate all those comments, and that's just another reason why somebody might want to do business with a credit union, right?
Exactly.
So what exciting programs or what exciting project do you guys have working on right now that you might want to talk to the audience about?
So, we're really, PPP has consumed our life. We thought it was going away. And now, but it seems like it's going to be expanding. Personally, I think it's going to be expanded to go towards the end of the year. And we're going to continue to support that for the smallest loans up to the biggest. We've kind of held off, on some different things that we were working on just because PPP popped up and it's what America needs. So that's really kind of our all-consuming function right now to go along with our boring traditional business. So.
Awesome. So if our audience wanted to get in touch with you to be able to do these PPP loans, or if they're looking for business funding, or if they're looking for maybe long-term, notes for real estate, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys? You have a website, an email address, phone number. How do you want people to get in touch with you?
The easiest way is our website, www.mbfs.org. We're also very active on LinkedIn where you can connect with us. I'm very active on LinkedIn. We have a lot of podcast listeners connect with me on there. Mark Ritter on LinkedIn and Member Business Financial Services on LinkedIn. We're very active and like to connect with people on there, but the website's probably the easiest.
And can you repeat that one more time?
mbfs.org.
All right, mbfs.org. We will also link that in the link below if you're watching us on Facebook, or if you're on YouTube, you can look in the comment section and find that there as well. So mbfs.org. If you guys need PPP loan, or if you're looking for business funding, or if you're looking for a real estate loan of any kind, or maybe portfolio lending or something like that, please give Mark a chance to be able to service you guys and to work in that realm with credit unions. And I think it's been a pleasure having you on today, Mark. I appreciate your time. Before we go, we always ask everybody 2 questions. So these are the last 2 questions that we're going to ask. Good success for us means something. It really stands for something. It's even the logo, the flame there that, enlights passion in people to try to, make people, do something greater than what they might just do if they didn't have that encouragement or that challenge from good success to be the right people and do the right thing. But when you heard that term good success, we always want to ask all of our podcast lists, our hosts, and guests, what does that mean to you? So what does good success mean to you?
So as I mentioned before, it's really being successful in your business from a financial standpoint is a small percentage of being successful. And it's really honoring the values of your faith, making sure you're honoring and valuing your family, and you're trying to make an impact in the community as a whole. And when you really balance all of those together, that's good success. It's not just, buying another house and buying another car, or, having the fanciest bling for you and your kids. That stuff comes and goes and not impressed, but really, being that person who's making an impact in all those areas is what success is to me.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for that. And I couldn't agree more. So again, we have one more question. We ask everybody who comes on the podcast this. We're always just trying to squeeze one more golden nugget from all of our guests if we can. But if you were to leave the audience with just one thing, maybe it's a quote, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a life lesson, something that you would just love the whole world to know from Mark Ritter, what would that one thing be?
So I have a football background, and football coaches are always the best with quotes and sayings. And the one that always stuck with me that I use in my business life is every day you get better or worse, but you never stay the same. And we always just try to look at the business here in what have we done to get a little bit better? We don't focus on massive leaps. We don't focus on hitting a home run and that one big goal. We just want every day to make things a little bit better. And that adds up in the long run.
Every day you get
better or worse, but you never stay the same.
Stay the same. That is a great quote. I love it. And I love the spirit behind that. And I couldn't agree more. So thanks again, Mark, for being on today. We really do appreciate the time that you spent for our audience. And we'll definitely for sure maybe be talking myself about future projects. And hopefully you guys that are listening to this podcast will consider Mark for your financing needs for your business. So that's going to do it for today's episode. I do want to remind everybody, if this is given value to you guys, go to either our YouTube channel or go to one of our podcast channels, iTunes, any of them, and just give us a 5-star review. It would really help us out a lot. And we're really trying to help Christian business entrepreneurs and business owners have more to give more. And we hope that this is bringing value to you guys. I hope if Mark isn't a connection, or if he's not a person that you can add to your network, I hope that you've listened and learned things from today's podcast that you'll be able to take with you, and maybe you'll be able to pass on to the next generation, or pass on to your employees at work, or pass on to other business owners that you know. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Remember to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. God bless. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Good Success Podcast, and we hope to see you on the next one. God bless.